In the previous lecture, we have seen the different controls of CMM. Now we will see the lasers, use of the lasers in metrology. So why these lasers are say used in the metrology? Because uh, as you can see, there are some advantages of using the lasers. That light from the lasers is coherent, intense. So coherent light itself has its own advantages. Then laser inspection systems have wide dynamic range, contrast. So that is the another advantage of the laser. It can assure 100% quality product. uh, the laser is a monochromatic in nature, so this light can be easily focused and concentrated with a lens to a very small diameter spot with much higher intensity. So these are the some of the advantages of using the lasers. That's why the laser is used in many applications. So let us see one by one how it is used. So we are basically discussing the applications of lasers in metrology. This question might be asked sometimes. So first application is a laser Doppler velocimeter. In this laser Doppler velocimeter, uh, as you can see, this is the instrument, that is a laser Doppler velocimeter. So in this laser Doppler velocimeter, it uses the laser Doppler principle, according to which any light beam coming in contact with moving object uh, will experience a shift in its frequency. So if this moving object is coming say in contact with this, say, a laser beam, so the frequency of this light is going to change. Okay, so now the change in the frequency is directly depending upon the velocity with which the object is moving, or the direction of the velocity of this object. Okay, so the velocity and direction both are going to decide uh, the change in the frequency of this laser beam. So now the meter, as far as the instrumentation is concerned, there is a source of the light, that is a laser is there, then a mirror to deflect the light, there is a beam splitter. We know that in the interference of light we will require this. So one beam is converted into, say, two beams, then two waves. This is a spectrum analyzer which is connected to computer. This is a photo detector, and this is a collecting lens. Okay, so now let us see how it works. This a laser beam is split into two beams of equal intensity with the help of this beam splitter. So lasers, this is source of light, and the laser will hit this mirror and it will be deflected towards this beam splitter. So beam splitter will split this laser beam into two waves. Now these waves are say are focused through this focusing lens, and they are crossed at the point of measurement. So this is a vicinity of measurement or point of measurement. In the point of this is a measurement volume, causing interference fringes, because this light is having some kind of frequency and the object is moving in this fashion. So whatever is the frequency of this light, that will be changing. So whatever tiny particles in this measurement volume are there, are tiny particles are there in measurement volume. These particles are going to scatter the light when they cross the light fringes. Okay, the tiny particles here, they are going to scatter the light when they cross the light fringes, but no light is scattered when they cross the dark fringes. That is the thing. So the light scattered from moving object, whatever light scattered by the moving object is scattered the light scattered from the moving object that will be collected by a lens, okay, and it is focused on a photodetector. So the light scattered by this moving that those tiny particles that will be say focused onto the photodetector. Now the time taken by a particle to move from one fringe to another is used to measure the velocity of the moving object or length of the moving object. So this is the now whatever is the spectrum that we are going to get, that will be used, that will be analyzed by the computer, and with the help of this spectrum analyzer we can easily find out the velocity of that particular component. Now we know that the velocity is whatever spectrum change in the frequency of the light, that is the function of this velocity of this moving object, and the direction. If this object is approaching the lens, then the change in frequency will be different. When the object is moving away or it is going away from this lens, then the frequency pattern will be different. So you can easily, by analyzing the spectrum analyzer, we can easily find out the velocity of the object or whatever parameter we want to measure, that can be easily found out using this technique. So this is the laser Doppler velocimeter. Same is shown here also. The sketch also shows the setup. So as you can see, there is a laser, there is a beam splitter is there, then there is a receiver lens, then we can see fringe spacing also we can see, then there is a photodetector, isn't it? So this is a photodetector, then this is the frequency and phase signal processor for velocity and size. So as I told you this is a spectrum analyzer. So this spectrum analyzer is connected to the computer. So by analyzing the change in the frequency, we can easily find out the velocity and size of the component. That can be easily found out. So this is one application of the laser, that is a laser Doppler velocimeter. Then whatever we have discussed, same is explained in this PPT, so nothing different. Then there is one more application, that is called as a laser diameter gauge. So you can if you go through the this, just 1 minute. If you go through this particular sketch, you can easily see that similar to this previous case, here also laser diameter gauge, it is an instrument which uses the laser for accurately measuring the diameter of any type of the rod. So as you can see, this is the rod, okay, whose diameter is to be measured. So you can see this is the rod. It is this must be an opaque rod, isn't it? So the objective is to measure the diameter of this particular rod. So the what how it works, the instrument uses two parallel beams transmitter receiver pairs. So as you can see, this is a one pair of transmitter receiver, and this is another pair of transmitter and receiver. Both are kept facing each other some distance apart. So you can see they are facing opposite to each other, and this is totally around the test piece. Now whatever is the laser beam is there, that laser beam emitted from the transmitter unit is converged into parallel beam by a projecting lens. So all the things are not shown here, only the measurement part is shown. So laser beam will come, it will be splitted, it then it will be converted to parallel beam by the projecting lens. Now this beam is going to pass through a slit on the receiver, and that is focused on the photo detector with the help of the lens. Now when a rod is going to pass between the transmitter and receiver, so as you can see, this rod is placed between transmitter and receiver. So when the rod is going to pass between the transmitter and receiver, the light falling on the receiver is reduced. So when there is nothing in between the transmitter and receiver, so whatever light is light is transmitted by the transmitter, same amount of light is going to be received by the receiver. But as the test rod is intercepting the path of the light of the laser, so the amount of light received by the receiver gets reduced. Now it depends what is the size of the object. The size of the object decides the amount of light received by the receiver. Higher the size, less is the light received by the receiver. Smaller the size, more and more amount of light is passing around this test piece. So that will be remaining light will be here. So that is the relation. So depending upon amount of light received by the receiver, we can easily calibrate that amount of light available at the receiver end with the size of the object. Okay, so means the output of the detector, that is the receiver, is calibrated to indicate the diameter of the rod. So that relation can be established. So as we discussed, there are two pairs of the transmitter and receiver. So this is one pair and this is another pair. Okay, so the basic objective is to observe the rod. We want to observe this particular rod from two angles, two angles. So whatever the two transmitter receiver pairs, these are mounted in a dust and moisture free air chamber through which water is circulated for cooling the sensors. So as you can see, this entire assembly is mounted in a dust and moisture free air chamber through which the water is circulated. So you can see water is going to enter and water is going to be out, because heat will be produced. Laser is going to produce the heat. Okay, so this is the another application of the laser. Then this is the actual setup for the laser diameter gauge. As you can see, this is the rod whose diameter is to be measured, isn't it? This is going to be source of the light, laser, and this is the transmitter, and this is the receiver. So in between transmitter and receiver, this is the rod, and calibration is done so that you can, this is the display unit. So in the display unit you can directly get the diameter of the shaft. Here, isn't it? So this is the laser diameter gauge. Then Nah, so whatever we discuss, same is written over here. Then there is a one more say application, that is a laser viewer for product profile check. This is the laser viewer for the product profile check. So as you can see, as this is the schematic diagram of the laser viewer. So in this laser viewer, a laser beam can be used to check the profile of the complex parts. So it is not, laser is not only used to check the linear dimension, it can be used to check the profiles of the complex parts like turbine blades. So we know that the the profile of the turbine blade is very important, uh, as everybody knows. So we should be ensure that whatever profile is produced of the turbine blades by the manufacturing process, whether it is correct or not, so we have to inspect it. So it has to be inspected using high-end technique, advanced technique. Okay, that can be done by this laser beam. Okay, so as shown in the figure, as you can see in the figure, the edge of the test piece is sharply marked by two beams of the laser light. So you can see these are the two beams of the light. So these two beams of the light, they are the source of the light. There is illumination is provided, and this is the test specimen. This is the test specimen. So edges are marked by these two sources, laser sources. Then it is then observed by a TV camera. So this is the TV camera is there. Then this is the beam splitter. This is a TV monitor. This is the graticule. What is a graticule? That we have already said. The engraved scale is already presented on the graticule. So it is used to measure, as we have seen this in case of attocolimeter. So graticule is there. So the TV camera also observes a graticule via a beam splitter. So this TV camera is going to observe the graticule also, and it is going to observe the test specimen also, isn't it? Now the magnified images of both the test specimen and that of the this graticule, both are displayed on this TV monitor. This is the TV monitor. So on this TV monitor, the image of the graticule and the image of the test specimen, both are the magnified images of test specimen and graticule. Those are displayed on this TV monitor. So now the position of the graticule, this graticule is so adjusted that the two images are superimposed. So the image of the test specimen and image of the graticule, okay, they are superimposed on each other. For that you have to adjust the image of the graticule. Okay, so whatever is the standard blade image is there, that is already say engraved here, isn't it? So that shape or that profile of the master turbine blade, which is standard, that is on the graticule. So that is compared with the actual test specimen by superimposing the images of both. So image of the test specimen and image of the graticule, this one, they are superimposed and on one another, so that if they are superimposed on one another, if there is any kind of error in the profile is there, that can be immediately noticed. So so this is another application of the laser that we can find out. So this is explained in this this PPT again. Then there is a laser scanning. So as you can see, it is similar to the laser diameter gauge. So scanning laser technique. So laser scanning systems are measuring and gauging systems, as we have seen, that use the low energy lasers. So as you can see in this setup, there is a this is a source of the laser. Then this is the rotating mirror. So this rotating mirror will deflect the laser towards the, say, optical system. This is the collimating lens, okay, which is used to convert the ray of light into parallel beam of light. Then this is the actual part whose diameter, whose shape is to be determined. This is a collecting lens, okay. This is a photo detector, and this is a signal processing microprocessor, and that will give the output size. Now in this setup, the laser beam from this laser source is deflected by this rotating mirror, and it is focused to sweep past the object to be examined. So it is focused here with the help of this focusing lens. And then a photo detector is used to sense this beam. So here there is a photo detector, so that is used to sense this beam, and a signal processing microprocessor unit converts this is a signal processing micropointer. It converts the signal for the given giving the measurement. Now this photo detector is going to sense this beam except when it is interrupted by the object, okay. So whatever light is is being focused on this, say, on this collimating lens, so all that light will be sensed, that will be collected by the collecting lens, and that will be given to the photo detector, and accordingly that photo detector is going to sense this light. But the photo detector is not going to sense the light when there is an object in between this collimating lens and collecting lens. So the photo detector senses the beam except when it is interrupted by the object in its path, okay. The period of time during which the light is interrupted is calculated, or it is monitored accurately and related to size of the object. So we can easily find out the time period for which the beam is not sensed by the photo detector, and that time is recorded accurately, and that can be related to the size of the object, okay. So this is very simple principle. The microprocessor unit records the time intervals and converts them into linear dimensions. So this work, post processing, that is a recording the time and converting and relating it to the size of the object, that work is done by this signal processing microprocessor, okay. So here the accurate measurements are done with this type of the technique. So this method is basically useful in metal forming operations like rolling, wire extrusion, etc., etc. This is another example of the, say, laser technique. Then whatever we discussed, that is written over here. Now there is one more part of this contents is interferometry. So in use of the interferometry is very, very important in metrology, because in this interferometry the principle of interference of light is used, and that is used to carry out measurements. So as you can see, so we'll see how it actually works, how the interferometer or interferometry works. So making the precise measurements can be done with the help of the interferometry. You will need the instruments like optical flat will be required, and you will require the source of the light, and that source of the light must be a monochromatic source of the light. And the phenomena is which is used for interferometry is the light wave interference. Light wave interference. So so before going into the details of the say interferometry directly, we should know what is the interference of the light. So all of we have studied this phenomena either in 12th class or in during diploma first year, second year, somewhere in the physics. We have, all of us have studied the principle of interference of the light, that is learned by all of us. So we know that let us say that suppose uh, two waves of the light, they have started from the same point. Say O is the source of the light, A is one wave, B is another wave, and both the waves, we know that according to Huygens theory, the light propagates in the form of a sinusoidal wave, isn't it? That is the Huygens theory. So the say wave A is having some amplitude YA, wave B is having amplitude YB, and both have started at the same time. So there is no phase difference, means both have started at the same point. So if such is the condition, then we can say that then the resultant of these two waves, the resultant of these two waves is given by wave R. Okay, this is the wave R, and the amplitude of this resultant wave is the YR. Amplitude of this wave is YR. So this is the, now whatever we discuss, when both the waves are in phase, you can see here, when the two waves are in phase. Now we will see what happens when the two waves are out of phase. When the two waves are out of phase, so as you can see here, the two waves are of different amplitudes. So wave A and wave B, as you can see, both the waves have started by phase difference of 180 degree, and their amplitudes are different. So YA is the amplitude of wave A, YB is amplitude of wave B, and the resultant of these two waves is this R, wave R, whose amplitude is YR. This amplitude is nothing but the difference between YA and YB. So YR, resultant of resultant amplitude of the resultant wave is equal to YA minus YB, amplitude of wave A minus amplitude of wave B. So this interference is called as a constructive interference, whereas this interference, when the waves are out of phase by 180 degree, that is called as a destructive interference. So so it can be seen here also. Now this is the case how the fringes form. So we can see this is the again source of the light. Two sources of the light are there, that is a source A, and light is emitted from source A and source B. Okay, so this is the screen where the light is hitting, or light gets heated. So suppose here both the waves have started. So this is the, there are various possibilities are there. So let us say wave A has traveled from here to here, so A to O2. So O2A is the distance traveled by wave A, O2B is the distance traveled by wave O2B, wave B. So the distance traveled by both the waves is same, so the path difference, both the waves have started at the same time, therefore the path difference between the two waves is 0. So if the path difference between the two waves is 0, then you are going to see a dark spot over the screen. What you will see? Dark spot. So one wave is going to cancel the other wave. When both the waves have started from the same origin, their amplitude is the same and the distance traveled by both the waves is same. Okay. Now what will happen if this is the wave A, so it is going to say point O3, so O3A is the distance traveled by A and O3B is the distance traveled by wave B. So we can easily see that O3B is greater than distance O3A. Okay, so if the path, so the path traveled by both the waves is different, so that path difference is, say, it is some value is going to be there, so distance O3B minus O3A is going to be some value. So that if that value is going to, that value is will be expressed in terms of the wavelength of that particular light. So if that wavelength is say if it is even multiples of the lambda by 2, sorry, if that path difference is in the even multiples of the lambda by 2, then you are going to get the say bright spot. So this bright spot, dark spot, by bright spot, dark spot, these are nothing but they form a pattern, a set of fringes is formed. Okay, so that is called as a fringe pattern. So in whenever you are taking, say, any kind of the readings with the help of the interferometer, so on the interferometer screen you will always get a fringe pattern where there will be alternate layers of dark band and bright band, one dark band, one bright band, and that will continue like this. So this is the formation of the fringes. Now let us see what is this. No, just as I have discussed how this optical flat and the fringe pattern takes place. So as you can see how the interferometry with the optical flats is achieved. So here the optical flat, what is the optical flat? So I will just show you one image. This is the optical flat. So optical flat is a plain lens. This is nothing but a lens that is made of optical glass or clear fused quartz. It may be made of these two materials. With its faces are accurately ground and lapped to gauge block flatness. So this face and opposite face, both the faces are accurately ground, so grinding operation is done as well as lapping operation is done. So they are lapped so that the flatness, so the flatness of these surfaces is very high. Okay, like a gauge block flatness. So highly flat, opposite surface will be highly flat. The sizes of these flats, they are available in various sizes are there, from 25 to 300 mm and diameter 12 to 25 mm. Okay, now how it works? Sometimes again before that, sometimes these optical flats are coated with the titanium oxide. They are coated with titanium oxide. So the purpose of using the titanium oxide is to reduce the loss due to reflection. So the light is going to be reflected from this surface. So to reduce the loss due to reflection, the surface of the optical flat is sometimes coated with the titanium oxide. And if you do this, the band or the fringes, that we are going to see in the interferometer, they will be more and more distinct. Okay. Then source of the light, various types of the light sources can be used. That is, we can use the sodium, we can use the cadmium, krypton 86, helium, mercury, all these things can be used, but many times helium is most widely used, and mercury is also used. Now we'll see how the principle of this interference of light with this optical flat. So you can see an optical flat, and this is the workpiece. Okay, this is the workpiece and this is the optical flat. So this optical flat is just resting at say at a slight angle to the workpiece. We can see this optical flat is resting on the workpiece, as the face of the optical flat is perfectly flat, but the face of the workpiece may not be perfectly flat. So that's why even if you rest it over the optical flat, it is going to look like this. It is going to be in an inclined position only. Okay, so there is no necessity of doing the ringing of optical flat with the workpiece. There is no need at all. Then a ray of monochromatic light. So this is the ray of monochromatic light, isn't it? This is the ray of monochromatic light, say LA. So this ray of the monochromatic light will strike the bottom face of the optical flat. So it is going to strike, this is the upper face, top face of the optical flash, this is the bottom place of the optical flat. So it will hit, this monochromatic light will hit this, strike this optical flat at B. So as it strikes here, it gets divided into two parts. It gets divided into two parts. One part will reflect from say point B itself in upward direction, like this, like a BR. So from here only a part of this incident light will reflect from point B, and it will be emerge as a say BR, and part of the incident ray will still propagate, and it will hit the workpiece here at point C, and it will get a reflect from that point like CDM. Okay, so whatever incident light is there, that is divided into two parts. One part is reflected from here, and another part of the that light is reflected from point C. Okay, so the two reflected rays, whatever these two reflected rays R and M, they may be in phase or out of phase depending upon this distance, extra distance traveled, isn't it? So this, the extra distance traveled by this ray of the light M, that is nothing but BCD. So what is depending upon the extra distance traveled by this ray, it decides whether the ray M and the ray R, whether they are in phase or whether they are out of phase. Okay, so obviously the path traveled by this ray R is say LABR. This is the path traveled by this ray R. The path traveled by the ray M is LABCDM. Okay, so definitely there is a path difference between these two rays. That path difference is nothing but the distance BCD. Okay, so if now how to decide whether they are in phase or they are out of phase? So this path difference BCD decides that. If the path difference is equal to odd number of half the wavelength, the two components will be out of phase. So if this path difference BCD, if it is equal to say is equal to multiple of lambda, it is going to be multiple of lambda by 2, but whether that multiple is odd, if that multiple is odd, so say 1 lambda by 2, 3 lambda by 2, 5 lambda by 2, then in that case the two components will be out of phase. So these two components will be out of phase if the path difference is equal to multiple of odd number of lambda by 2 and interference is achieved and complete interference is achieved. Complete interference is achieved means you can see a dark band here. You can see the dark band here in this case. So here one dark band will be seen if this distance BCD is equal to odd multiple of lambda by 2, like 1 lambda by 2, 3 lambda by 2, 5 lambda by 2. Okay. A dark line will be seen passing through point C. So we will see a dark line passing through point C. You can consider another ray here. Okay, here you can see another ray is incident here from here. So again this ray is split into two parts as we discussed. Okay, it is striking here. So this ray, say ray ELE, so it will strike the bottom of the optical flat. So part of this incident ray is getting reflected from point F, so and it will go to J. So J, then part of that light will again travel in downward direction and it will hit this particular workpiece at point G. So it will reflected from here like GHK. Okay, so again similar to M and R, the two rays, these two rays J and K, they will either be in phase or they will be out of phase depending upon this distance. Now again depending upon distance FGH. So the path difference between the two rays J and H, the path difference between two rays J and H is nothing but FGH, distance FGH. So again if this path difference BGH, if it is a, say odd multiple of lambda by 2, you will see another dark band here which is emerging from G. But if this path difference is even multiple of lambda by 2, like 0 lambda by 2, 2 lambda by 2, 4 lambda by 2, in that case you are going to get a bright spot, or you are going to get a bright line. So so if we denote if air gap between bottom of the optical flat, so there is a air gap between bottom of the optical flat and the workpiece. If the air gap between the optical flat and the test surface is denoted by H, let us see, this is H is the air gap between this optical flat and the workpiece. So we can say that H is equal to approximately equal to say BC, and that is also equal to CD, because this angle theta is very small. Okay, this angle is very small. So H is approximately equal to BC, or it is approximately equal to BD also, isn't it? So if this H value is equal to lambda by 4, so as you can see, so this value of whatever I am telling, that is all things are written over here. So if H is equal to lambda by 4, then path difference is equal to BCD is equal to 2H, that is equal to lambda by 2. So this is the path difference we have seen. BCD is the path difference, that is equal to BC plus CD, means H plus H, 2H, and we have taken H as a lambda by 2. So BCD is equal to 2H is equal to lambda by 2. So this is nothing but this is 1 lambda by 2. Lambda by 2 means what? It is a 1 lambda by 2. So the path difference is 1 is a odd number, that's why this path difference is an odd multiple of lambda by 2. That's why complete interference is achieved in this case. The complete interference is achieved means both the beams are out of phase and dark fringe is formed. So here if we are taking H as a lambda by 4, so here the path difference is lambda by 2, which is odd multiple of lambda by 2, 1 lambda by 2. That's why complete interference is achieved. That's why a dark band is observed over here. Then let us see one more case. If h is equal to, say, if that h is taken as, on the other hand, if we take, instead of taking h equal to lambda by 2, if we take h as a lambda by 2, okay, so in that case this value, the path difference is going to be even multiple of lambda by 2, isn't it? So 2h is going to be equal to lambda, so lambda is nothing but 2 times lambda by 2, so 2 times lambda by 2 means it is even multiple of lambda by 2, and if the path difference is even multiple of lambda by 2, the constructive interference we are going to get, that's why bright line will be seen. Okay, so bright, so obviously you are going to get the dark fringe, the set of fringes in which there are alternate layers of dark fringe, white fringe, dark fringe, white fringe, so that value you are going to get. So we can say that if suppose there is a, this distance is say lambda by 4, and if this distance is 3 lambda by 4, so here we have seen, if we take the value of lambda by 4, we have got one dark fringe. Now we have taken another array where this distance between G and H is, this height H between G and H is taken as a 3 lambda by 4. So if we take that distance and if we try to find out what kind of fringe will be here, so again here you are going to get the dark fringe here also. So here you have got the dark fringe when H is equal to lambda by 4. Here when again you are going to get the same dark fringe when the value is 3 lambda by 4. Okay, so we can, by getting this, we can conclude that if thus if the air wedge, I will show here. So each adjacent fringe represents change in the elevation of the work surface to surface relative to optical flat of lambda by 2. Means what? The distance between dark fringes is going to be lambda by 2, isn't it? So here when we have got first dark fringe or one dark fringe when H is equal to 1 lambda by 4, we have got another dark fringe when this distance is 3 lambda by 4. So the difference between two fringes is nothing but the 3 lambda by 4 minus 1 lambda by 4, means it is equal to 2 lambda by 4. 2 lambda by 4 means it is equal to lambda by 2. Means what? The the distance between, or we can say that the distance between the two dark fringes is approximately equal to lambda by 2. So distance between this the fringe, one fringe here and another fringe here, so that distance is nothing but the lambda by 2, isn't it? So each dark band, so we can say that each dark band seen, so we are going to get the alternate layers of dark band, white band, dark band, white band. I will show you one here. So you can say this is a fringe pattern. So this is one dark band, white band, dark band, white band. So the distance between two adjacent dark bands is nothing but the lambda by 2, isn't it? So each dark band seen over the optical flat represents a distance change of the half the wavelength between the optical flat and the workpiece, that we have just seen. What is the difference? So if there is a one dark band and another, so these are the two adjacent dark bands. So the distance between two adjacent dark bands is nothing but the lambda by 2. So we can say that if two dark bands are seen, adjacent to each other means the height difference between the workpiece, or height difference between the uh, workpiece and the bottom of the optical flat is equal to 1 lambda by 2. If we have seen two adjacent friends, say this is one set of adjacent dark bands, so two dark band are seen, means one, there is a one set of adjacent bands. If there is one more dark band is seen, means there is one more adjacent bands is there, so two dark adjacent bands are there. So in this way we can easily find out this distance h, height of the workpiece, or difference between the under the this face of the optical flat and bottom face of the optical flat and the top face of the workpiece. So just by counting the number of adjacent dark fringes we can easily find out the value of h, the total height of the workpiece. So each dark band seen over the optical flat represents a distance change of half the wavelength between the optical flat and the workpiece. So the meaning of the sentence is one adjacent band of the dark bands represents, there is a change of lambda by 2 between optical flat and the workpiece. So more the number of dark bands, more is the height difference between optical flat and the workpiece, and we can easily find out. So whenever you want to measure whenever you want to carry out the measurement using the optical flat, we can just count the number of adjacent fringes, dark fringes. So that is written over here. We can just, so if n number of adjacent fringes are seen in a fringe pattern, so this is, as I told you, this is a fringe pattern. So in this fringe pattern, if there are n adjacent fringes are there, so you have to just multiply that n by lambda by 2. Lambda is the wavelength of the light that you are using, and n lambda by 2 gives you the height difference between the optical flat and the workpiece. That can be easily found out. So this is a simple say principle of interference of the light which is used for the measurement. Various kinds of measurements are specially done using this principle. Okay, so how to take the actual measurements, that we will see in the next lecture.